gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, is it not?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. He looked good, Coach.
Oh, trying. Thank you.
Welcome to Off the Air on a Wednesday here in the Quad Cities. It is Wednesday, March 12th. I think. Yes, March 12th. Beautiful Wednesday here in the Quad Cities. So much to get to here on the show today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you're watching OTA on our YouTube channel, we greatly appreciate it. We appreciate the everydayers, people that text me or get a hold of me every day saying they watch the show, they enjoyed the show. We really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And if you have subscribed and you want to tell a friend or two or 10 or 20 or 100, that'd be great as well. Working our way towards 750, trying to get to 800 subscribers by the end of this week. We'll see if we can get there as well. We are also live on X. We started simulcasting on X, probably 2.5 weeks ago, and it's been very, very good. Over 1,500 people watched yesterday via X live on the feed as well. So we appreciate that. If you're doing that on X, we appreciate you for doing that. Then also go to the YouTube page. If you're watching on X, go to the YouTube page, subscribe as well. And also, we're on every podcasting platform available to mankind: Apple, Podbean, Spotify, iHeart, you name it. Wherever you get your podcasts, we're on there as well. And I always say it's better to listen to the show than to watch the show because, well, you can see what you're looking at. So it's not always a pretty picture. So we appreciate all the support. Great sponsors as well. Snoop's, Godfather's here in the Quad Cities, and a new sponsor coming later this week we're really excited about as well. So thank you for supporting the show and letting us do this goofy show each and every day here in the Quad Cities at 10 a.m. Of course, a big show to get to today. Yesterday was a ton of fun. Make sure you check out yesterday's show as well. A lot of good stuff from Monday and Tuesday. We're focused on Wednesday, and it should be a lot of fun. Coming up in just a little bit, in a matter of moments, we'll be joined by my good friend, former Iowa Hawkeye, former Philadelphia Eagle, Julian Vandervelde. Will be joining me to talk about some NFL free agency. And I had such fun on Monday going through Pat Anger's favorite stadiums and then Tom Caker texted me and he started weighing in what his were. And I'm like, I'd love to get Julian's thoughts on that as well. So a lot to get to with Julian Vandervelde. Always a ton of fun. We're going to get to him in just a matter of moments. Also, a big night high school-wise. You look outside, it's gorgeous. Baseball season is right around the corner. And we've always had the Western Big Six football banquets. We've always had the Western Big Six boys basketball banquets. The girls' banquet we added a few years ago. I've been lucky enough to MC a lot of those. Tonight is the inaugural Western Big Six baseball banquet. A lot of great coaches, a lot of great tradition. So we're going to talk about tonight and the Western Big Six baseball season with Rock Island's Jake Scudder and Alaman's Thomas Smith coming up in just a little bit. That'll be later on here in hour number 1 and also in hour number 2. The Iowa State Cyclones beginning a big week in the Big 12 tournament. The ladies wrapped up their season last week as well. They should be in the NCAA tournament. So we talk a lot of Hawkeyes. We had Jim Madsen on yesterday talking about the Fighting Illini. We got to make our Cyclone friends happy as well. So Jake Brend from Des Moines, from WI in Des Moines, our Cyclone expert, will be along in hour number 2 of today's program. So we have a ton to get to. Thank you guys for watching. And I mentioned Cyclones and I started talking Cyclones and I figured my first guest might be cringing because he was the man that said, I don't like the Cyclones. Julian Vandervelde, how are you, my friend?
Let me just start by saying you don't have to appease the Cyclone fan base. Like it's not contractually obligatory. If you have no contractual obligations anymore,
that's true.
You can do whatever you want, man.
That's
you
true.
can do whatever you want.
I could. I want every viewer possible at this stage, Julian. I will whore myself out to whatever fan base wants to be talked about, that it can get me the most clicks, likes, all those kind of things as well. So, but you were the guy I don't want to start with this, but we're gonna. You were the guy that said, "I hate." Was it the entity of Iowa State, or how did you say it as a freshman in Kirk Ferentz's program?
I believe, and I only remember this because every single time we hang out with Tom Kakert, he brings it up. And he remembers the quote. I'm pretty sure it made his career because I think he might have broke the story or whatever and ended up being the one who actually started the freshman ban on media. But it was, I don't hate the players. I don't hate, the coaches necessarily or the students. I have friends who go to Iowa State. I hate the entity that is Iowa State. And I think that was the part, the hate. No, come back here. Sorry, I know you like to have guests in honor of Hump Day. My wife is here. Hi.
you are in trouble, young man. I love Paula. Paula's your better half in every way, shape, and form. Shape, and form, and you know that.
Yeah, no one doubts that. That's easy.
So, all right. Well, enough Iowa State hatred and all that kind of. By the way, your lovely wife graduated from Iowa State, did she not?
She did not. She went there for like a term or a semester, whichever one is shorter in college, and before she was rescued and swept away from that horrible wart on the state by myself. No, in all honesty, all respect to Iowa State. I know they're doing some big things right now. They're moving and shaking, and they got a heck of a staff over there on the football side. Obviously, their basketball team's moving along at a pretty good clip. So, kind of like an older sibling is always proud of their younger sibling. It's a Hawkeye state, but when the Cyclones do better, we look better when we beat them. So,
little brothers all grown up. Kind of right now.
That's right. Little brothers all grown up, and you like to see that to a certain extent.
Hey, have you? And last time we talked to you, the Philadelphia Eagles had just won the Super Bowl. Cooper DeJean was the man, still is the man. Hey, we're efforting to get Cooper on the show in the next couple weeks, huh? I mean, he's no Julian Vandervelde or Pat Anger or anybody like that, but that would be fun, wouldn't it?
I think he'd be incredible. What I love about Coop is he's so like even keel. When you see him do interviews, right? He's very small town Iowa. He's very humble. He doesn't brag himself up or anything like that. But then they come out and show like locker room pictures where he's like smoking a cigar next to Quinion Mitchell, like throwing up signs and stuff. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, like if he's just that multiple of a dude, or if there's like multiple personalities, if he just turns it on and off and code switches like crazy. But it seems like the man can do anything, and that's really cool.
Yes, no. So we're working on that. But hey, so the Eagles have won that Super Bowl. I thought of you because there's a lot going on football wise, and you did play in the league, and it's been a minute, but you've been around the craziness that is NFL football. I say a minute in a nice way, but you've been around it because it is a big business, and you've been through the ups and downs of leaving a team, coming back to a team, all of those kind of things. Can you talk about the big business of the NFL? Because I think as fans, we just sit here and think of it as fantasy football, if that makes sense, where we're just plugging and trying to figure out the best way. There's a lot that goes into each and every offseason, and it's getting more and more complicated as we go.
Absolutely. And I think when people ask, because I get asked a lot, or I used to get asked a lot, nobody cares about me anymore. Back in the day, I would get asked all the time, like, which did you enjoy more, college or the NFL? And the answer 100% is always college. And I think part of that, and this is where, again, I think NIL has changed this a little bit. But at a certain level, I think it's still true. College was football. Right, college football at the time was just football. You were there to get your degree. You stayed in good standing in the classroom, but outside of that, it was the game was what it was all about. When you got to the NFL, it was business first. Right, it was money first. It was whose contract had more zeros, who had the team already invested in many cases, sometimes over who maybe was a more talented person. There's people who get bounced out of the league, I think, because not because of anything that they've done on the field, but because somebody was a higher draft pick. because somebody they traded for a guy, even if he wasn't living up to the hype, somebody who was a first round draft pick is always a first round draft pick, and everybody sees that potential. And so there's the business element of it, of the internal politics and the money side of it. I will say, I don't think there's anybody doing it better in the league right now than Howie Roseman and the Eagles. And I know there's a lot of people kind of freaking out about some of the changes, like C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Josh Sweat and some of these guys that they're moving around in free agency. Man, in Howie we trust. All right, that dude has done such an incredible job of not just seeing the immediate picture and the immediate need, but 2, 3, 4 years down the line, contracts that are coming and going and players that are coming and going and who's going to be available when and where and, which draft picks are you going to have and which positions are going to be strong in which years in the draft. Like, they have built that defense from the ground up, with a lot of rookie talent. They're developing internally very, very well. And I think that's, a trend that I hope continues anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing I wanted to talk to you about because, and I'm a Lions fan. I don't want to say I'm a Bears hater because I feel like everything I say negative towards them happens, and I'm really smart. So I'm sorry that I get my takes correct, but
Accurate.
And I think they've done well. I think they've done well this offseason, but I look at free agency and I don't love free agency. I don't think you build through free agency. And I'm not saying the Bears are building through free agency. They have a rookie quarterback and I love what they've done with the trenches. And we're going to talk about the trenches next. But free agency in general just seems like if you're doing it correctly, and you just mentioned with the Eagles doing it correctly, if you won a Super Bowl, you're probably not looking to shop. You know what I mean? Like, as the Lions, they haven't done much. They signed DJ Reed. Well, they won 15 games. They want to keep their own. They want to develop, retain their own. They want to sign, the guys that they developed to big contracts and give them money. Am I crazy about that? Or what are your thoughts on free agency as a whole?
No, 100%. First of all, you have to build something through the draft because in a perfect world, that's where your cheapest players come in, right? Like even a first round draft pick a lot of times is not garnering the same kind of contract in terms of its structure as a guy that you're bringing in off of free agency on like a 3-year, whatever, 150 million, whatever they're making now. That's like quarterback numbers. But you want to build through the draft, because the NFL stands for not for long, right? There's not a lot of guys who make it to the point where they're really playing free agency, as seasoned veterans. As guys get older, we start to break down. Just is what it is. You want young, talented bodies, coming from systems that are evolving with the game, so that you can build talents, that you have more of a blank slate that you can kind of paint onto. You use free agency to fill in the holes, right? Things that you maybe need that you don't think you're going to get in the draft. And B, that's where the experience comes from. You look at guys like A.J. Brown, who came into Philadelphia, right? I think of Slay, right? Darius Slay from Philadelphia was the old guy in that cornerback room, which is now young and healthy and talented and all this other stuff. It's like, those guys were able to learn from a seasoned veteran, a top tier, all pro level guy. Okay. And then you bring in young guys through the draft to build up that room and learn under the veteran. And then your team evolves and those young guys get older and the older guys move on. And so you kind of cycle through like that, but you don't build a roster through free agency, I think. That just doesn't, I don't think, outside of, very, very seldom does it really work out where you get a long-term prospect out of free agency. You want to develop your young guys. The Eagles are young, especially on defense. Your Lions are young. And I think that they're building towards something good. And then you kind of see the cycle of like the 49ers, who are starting to get to the point where they're maybe a little bit older. And so you kind of see both sides of the spectrum everywhere in the league. But yeah, unless you're going for broke and it's like, this is it, we're heading to the Super Bowl, it's Super Bowl or bust. And we're spending all kinds of crazy money on all pro dudes that we think are going to get us there in the positions that we don't have. Like, I don't think you build a team through free agency. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And Julian Vandervelde joining us right now, the offensive lineman and and you look at what some of these old offensive linemen are making these days, it's good to see. And like, I mean, sure, go back to the day, and hopefully, you were in that position, and that the money wasn't what it was. And I think you have to reward those big guys up front. And I mentioned the Bears, and they are finally like addressing the trenches and realizing that that's the most important part of the football field. And then you move from there, maybe outside quarterback, to see those big guys get love and then on money. And then also to see the Bears address the trenches is important, because that's where you win football games on both sides of the line of scrimmage, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the Super Bowl is a perfect example of that. If you can get pressure with 4, if your defensive front is so good that you can pressure with 4 and drop 7 into coverage, it's hard to play modern football with 7 DBs running around back there. And if you can't, then you're sooner or later somebody's getting open somewhere. It's just so hard to play defensive back anymore that you give anybody enough time, and some NFL level wide receiver is going to get open. But on the reverse side of that, to your point, what have the Bears been missing for so long, right? And fans have decried it for years. That it's the offensive line. It doesn't matter how many first round quarterbacks you bring in if the guy's constantly running back and forth and he's getting 500 yards rushing sideways because he's being chased from both sides because his offensive line can't protect him. In the age where the running back is seeing a resurgence and the running game is coming back into prevalence in the NFL finally, you can't run the ball like King Henry, Saquon Barkley, these guys, without a competent offensive line at least, it doesn't matter how good your running back is. Everyone's big, strong, and fast in the NFL, So I think that the key to the game has always been blocking and tackling. It will continue to be blocking and tackling, and nobody does more blocking and tackling than the guys in the trenches.
No, 100%. Julian Vandervelde joining us right now. On Monday, I don't know why we got into this subject, but Pat and I started talking about stadiums. And you just mentioned your number one love is college football. And I think if you could go relive 5 years of your life, it's probably those 5 in Iowa City over the 5 in Philadelphia and a few stops in between. So we started talking about stadiums and the best stadiums, and I love college football. And you mentioned college football is changing. Now it's more of a bigger business than it is anything else, not to the extent of the NFL. But and Pat, I don't know why, but we did his top stadiums that he ever got to play in. And Pat, because he's very simple-minded, I think just went back and thought of his favorite games. You know what I mean? And he's like, well, I love this game, so I love that place. But he had a good list. I liked his list. So I asked you to put together a list. I'm not including Kinnick Stadium. We can all admit Kinnick Stadium's the GOAT, right? We're good with that. Okay. So with that being said, and I'm leaving Jack Trice Stadium out of it and focusing on the Big Ten.
Thank you.
But with that said, what were your experiences like at Jack Trice, and would it even compete in your top 5 if it could get in?
Absolutely not. First of all, the first time I went to Jack Trice, they literally spat on us. Like, first of all, that's a health and safety violation, right? Like, that's some sort of concern of spreading germs, like in an age where I don't know if half of them are getting vaccinated. There's random diseases that we thought we eliminated 50, 60 years ago spiraling. Like, why would you spit on somebody? That's gross. It used to be illegal to spit on the sidewalk for fear of spreading disease. So don't do that. So Jack Trice, no. But also, the ground wasn't real great, right? It's not a real big place, so it's not real impressive. Like, they do some cool stuff with like the grass and everything, and I think there's been some renovations since the last time I was there. Probably, I don't know. I'll never go again. So it wouldn't be in my top 100 stadiums, and I didn't even play in that many.
I love it.
But that's a little bit of my
all right,
personal
so
feelings.
Here's do you have your list? I don't want you to say anything, but do you have your list? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna guess it. All right. And I'm going to see if I can get it right. I get like 2 strikes. Once I get 2 strikes and don't get it right, then I'm out. I'm going to start top to bottom because I think that's easiest. And I don't want to start with the same as Pat, but I'm gonna. Is Penn State number 1 on your list?
It is not.
Ooh, okay, good. Then that's strike 1. Then I'm going to say,
My list is going to surprise you. It's going to surprise you.
Okay, then I might be out soon, but that's okay. I can be a loser and still do the game. I don't think Michigan's on your. I don't even think Michigan's in your top 3. Is it Wisconsin?
Wisconsin is up there. It is,
but it's
probably,
not.
I will give Wisconsin number 1. I'll give Wisconsin number 1.
Wisconsin is number 1. What is it about that place? It was 2 on Pat's list. There's the jump around in the fourth quarter. I think he said they won both times. Did you win both times? Because you're a year past Pat, so it's probably a little different.
I was a year behind Pat. So
freshman year
I feel like we lost one.
Freshman year you lost. Junior year you won.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Okay. So what is it about that place that you appreciate when it comes to college football?
Sure. So I evaluate stadiums by very specific metrics. Number 1 is the field, right? Do they take good care of the field? I don't know how many stadiums have turf anymore. We were there when Kinnick went from grass to turf, right?
Yeah.
I appreciate what field turf has been, because when I was in high school, it was not this. But the grounds and how they keep the actual turf. Do you feel like you can play and have steady footing, right? That's number 1. And I think Wisconsin did a really nice job of that. Number 2 is definitely like atmosphere, student section, right? How big is it? How, what sort of cool things do they do? How hard do they make it on you? Where is it located? Is it easier to go to one side or the other? And then the last one is experience. And so I think that for me, Wisconsin had a mix of all that stuff. Like it's a great place. First of all, Madison is just in terms of like the game day atmosphere. And, I'm a big beer and brats guy. So that's, it's kind of their state foods. But
is that official?
Was always great.
Is that official?
I think it's beer, cheese, and bratwurst is the official.
I think that's on the flag. I think they actually have a bratwurst on the flag.
If it's not, it needs to be. Somebody write into the show, send in fan art for Dazzo of new state flags based on their foods. That's actually a really competition. You should look into that. We'd go on food podcast. Just give me a food episode. We'll go. But yeah, I think they did a great job with the grounds. I think the fan base was awesome. I loved Jump Around. I hate to say it, but I thought it was sick. I think they changed the song now, which makes me unhappy because part of it was the rowdiness that you get. But I loved Wisconsin. I thought it was a great place to play.
All right. Is Penn State 2? I keep on harping on Penn State. Is Penn State 2?
Not 2 either.
Okay. Is it? So then we get away from that. I've lost, but I'm going to get this thing figured out. I don't think it's Michigan. Is it Ohio State?
It is not even Ohio State.
Okay. Well,
This is the one that's going to surprise you. It's really going to surprise you.
And this is number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, lay it on me.
And I can't even explain like why this made so much of an impression on me. But Purdue, of all places,
you know what? Tom Kaker told me on the phone last night that Purdue is the worst stadium in the Big Ten. He had a
that's not true at all.
Okay, explain yourself.
Northwestern is the worst stadium in the Big Ten. Yeah, Northwestern is the worst stadium in the Big Ten. And that's not up for debate. I will die on that hill.
But they have a new one coming. Northwestern's building a new one, so that's a good thing.
Yeah,
but Purdue,
sure
number
cool,
2.
Not there yet.
What was it about Purdue?
2. I liked, first of all, I did think they took surprisingly good care of the grounds. I didn't think that it was going to be a point of emphasis for them. I think of them as a basketball school. But the grounds were pretty cool. It was not a big place to play. But I thought the crowd coordination that they had, the time that we went there, was incredible. They did this thing where like they did the wave around the stadium, and then when it hit the point where the wave started, they did a slow motion wave the whole way back around, and then hit it with like a fast motion wave back the other direction, which was weird and wild. But I thought, like, for a place that I had never really considered to be like a cool stadium or anything like that, I thought that the experience, like the way that their fans got into it, was really incredible. It felt like there were a lot more people in there than there actually were. And I think if you can give that impression, right? Like there's some stadiums that are small, but it makes you feel like you're playing somewhere a lot bigger. That made an impact on me. And so I always remember that game, and I remember the experience of being there. That one for me was my number 2 experience of this is a cool stadium. They're doing some cool things, like Ohio State's great and everything, but I really didn't feel like they did anything. It's just like, oh, it's the shoe. Yeah, but they don't do anything that makes that spectacular.
Yeah.
Right. In my opinion, in my experience, I thought Purdue put way more effort into the fan experience being cool.
I feel like Michigan is overrated. Are they on
Very.
your top 5?
Oh, they would not be in my top 5.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
I haven't been there since. No, I haven't been there since.
No, but I've heard it's cavernous. I heard it's just huge, but it's not up. It's laid out more, and it doesn't get as loud as and intimidating as other places. So, I mean, is Penn State on your top 5?
Yes, Penn State is 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is it about Happy Valley?
Happy Valley, I don't know if they designed it this way. Somebody told me this once, but it was so the way that it comes up, and then like the lights and the press boxes and everything like come over the top a little bit, because it's so like high and vertical, and then you get this kind of enclosing effect, even though it's an open stadium. Like the steel structure, the fact that it's a steel structure too, holds all of the sound in. So not only is it a lot of people, which it is a lot of people, right? Like if I'm thinking about experience, Penn State is probably number 2. Like if I sat down and gave this a long thought, I would talk myself out of Purdue being at number 2. But the way that like it's got everything, right? The grounds, I thought the grass was too long. That's just a me thing. The grounds were pretty cool. The stadium itself is very impressive. Obviously, with like whiteouts and stuff like that, they do a great job of bringing everybody together and coordinating everything. But that was arguably the loudest environment that I've ever been in. It's that or Seattle. Playing in Seattle, because they actually designed the stadium to focus sound on the field. Seattle has like half as many people, like the Seahawks, and it was as loud, if not louder, than Penn State. But Penn State, especially night game, whiteout, like all the cool stuff, that was definitely a very cool experience.
Night game, whiteout, Adrian Claiborne blocking a punt, running through the rain for a touchdown. I think it was Is Michigan State in your top 5? Because Tommy called it underrated. And when I was on the phone, we didn't even have that on air. And 7 got 6 there. So like I feel like that gives some pull towards Michigan State. Did Michigan State make the top 5?
I think Michigan State has to be in there, and that is a matter of experience, right? Like I don't remember as much about the fans, although they were rowdy as heck. I remember them being into it. I don't remember as much about the field itself. But I absolutely do think that if you're talking about like places that just emotionally right there, they stay with you. I think 7 got 6 is always going to be a place where I got to put it in there, because shoot, I could go back there in 50 years and be like, see that spot over there? That's where we scored the last.
Where were you on the field when that happened?
I was on the field. I was playing right guard.
And what like when it happens, like what do you do? Where do you go? Do you remember that, or is it all a blur? Like take me through when you
100%.
noticed and you looked up and you saw it was over.
I remember the whole thing, because that week in practice, I had missed a blitz pickup. Our defense ran a double A gap blitz in the deep red zone, and Brett Greenwood came through the A gap safety blitz, and I did not pick him up, and it was on like the 2-yard line or something like that, and Coach Morgan came in and just ripped me a new one about not having my eyes up and how could you blah 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 blah, and they ran that blitz on that play. They double A gapped us. And I remember that being in my head, thinking about it, and make the call, shift down, pick up the blitz. Ricky throws the ball, catches it, and then my first thought was somebody, I don't know if it was that week or the week prior or earlier, had talked about a last second touchdown that a previous Iowa team had, and I think it was one of our guest speakers, and he talked about how when he got dogpiled, like he thought he was going to die because he couldn't breathe underneath all of his teammates, like legit fear for his life. So my first thought was protect Marvin. So I ran over, and you can see me on like the film as we're dogpiling, come over and like huddle over the top half of his body to just basically try and like stay above him and keep everyone else from like pressing down on him so that we didn't crush him. Because I was like, this is happening. We're dogpiling this
you
dude.
needed
Like,
him.
I don't want him to go that way.
You need to keep him healthy. You didn't want to lose him for any longer. Is that, I don't want to harp on it too much, but is that the best moment of your college, like just single moment of your college career at Iowa? Or is there something else that ranks up there?
The last second field goal to beat Michigan in Kinnick.
Yeah,
that's definitely up there. I mean, we had, there were some last second heroics, I think, that stand out. But that is a top 3 moment. Again, I'd have to that's a different conversation. I catalog going through my brain and going, okay, of all the moments that we had,
I love it.
What am I looking at here? But yeah,
I've heard that 09 team was the greatest team in Iowa football history, proclaimed by Pat A.
Undoubtedly.
I mean, I'm just saying. So, okay. So that last one, you got 4. We need one more. Is it Ohio State by default?
I think by default it's Ohio State, just because it is like that, not the outcome that you wanted, but a hell of a game. One of the, if you talk about just like classic games, like that's up there. If you talk about classic games that Iowa lost, that's probably number 2 after the Big Ten championship game against Michigan State, in my opinion. I'm not that old, so there's probably games that go back farther that I don't know about. But the atmosphere, I mean, the top two teams in the country, it is a cool stadium. I'm not saying it's not, right? They take great care with the field. The fans obviously get super into it. It's a classic, historic, amazing stadium to play in. I think it would be criminal to not put it in a top 5.
No, I would agree with that. I've never been that. I've been to most of those. Purdue, I haven't. I shouldn't say that. I've been to Michigan State, Wisconsin, I have been. But man, yeah. Pat said Northwestern and Illinois, worst stadiums, period.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. I don't know how the state of Illinois puts up with that. With how much emphasis they put on their sports, especially like high school sports and stuff, like for their colleges to be failing them in that way. I think is abysmal. Northwestern by far the worst stadium, in my opinion. I hope their new one is better for their sake. But football not the biggest focus at that school. Certainly, get your degree, stay in schools, kids. In Illinois, I did not enjoy the trip to Illinois for multiple reasons. But yeah, just you would think that they would have a better setup. I feel like there's certain schools that you go.
I think it's getting better, but I still think it has ways to go. And obviously success helps, and they've had success under Big Bert and all those kind of things. You mentioned AstroTurf, by the way. I wrote down when you said it, because you said different from, or as you said, turf is different from when you played. Brady Street Stadium used to just be like carpet on cement, didn't it, when you played?
Yep.
Like it wasn't anything
100%.
much more than just that. So yes, it's gotten a lot better. I have homework for you. Because you mentioned cooking. Let's figure out a food segment for the show. Are you in?
A cooking segment?
I don't know if it's cooking because that makes it harder. I don't know if it's an eating segment. I don't know if it's we cook it ahead of time and pre-record it. But I feel like we need to do something along those lines. So my homework, if you're in, is to brainstorm something that we can do off the air when it comes to cooking and eating. I've talked with Pat. I don't want to be that guy that talks about every day on my stupid show, but I'm on that intermittent fasting diet, and I'm so hungry right now. I haven't eaten anything since like 5 o'clock yesterday, and I'm so hungry. And the only thing that's stopping me from going down to my kitchen and eating everything is that I got this stupid little show that I'm doing right now. But I can't wait to eat something. Is there something? Last time you were on, you introduced us to the place there on Locust Street.
Eddie's Snack Bar, baby.
Yes. Is there any other hidden gem you can give us before you leave us today? Any other hidden gem, or just not even hidden, just a gem in general that people can go eat at locally?
Listen, I mean, if you haven't been to Mantra in downtown Davenport, I will give them my Golden State. That's me and Paula's like go-to.
Nice.
If we're just like, hey, we're gonna go to lunch together on a Friday, and we don't have a plan for anywhere else because we usually like to go somewhere different every time. But if it's just like last minute, spur of the minute thing, where are we going to go? We're going to go to Mantra.
Okay.
They have a lunch buffet on Fridays. I didn't know I liked Indian food, and we tried it one time, and now I'm obsessed. So that every time I come on, I'm going to give you one place.
I love it.
And your job before I come on the next time, your homework is to go eat at that place.
I love it. It gives me an excuse to go out and eat. I love it. I absolutely love it. So, all right, Julian, well, I'm going to let you go. Let's think of this cooking thing. I appreciate all your knowledge. Tell your lovely wife I said hi. Next time I might just have her on and leave you away. No, don't you dare, Julian. You can get yourself in trouble.
She can hear you.
I know. Be smart. Be smart. So I appreciate you. We'll talk to you real soon. Thanks, my man.
Love you, buddy. We'll see you around.
All right, Julian Vandervelde joining us here on a Wednesday in the Quad Cities, talking a little everything. It is that fun time of year for free agency and NFL, so I figured it'd be a great idea to have Julie on to talk about the NFL side of things, being part of it several years ago, and then also I love this stadium thing. I'm going to come up with another top 5 for Pat next week, maybe top 5 moments in his Iowa career, and maybe do it with Julian as well. See, I'm thinking on the fly here on Off the Air on a Wednesday. We're just getting warmed up. We got a lot of great stuff to get to. We mentioned coming up an hour or two, Jake Brend from WI in the Des Moines area will be here to talk about the Cyclones. They play here, heck, in just a little bit. They play in like an hour. They take on Cincinnati in the Big 12 tournament, but their thought process moving to the postseason, a team that some had in the Final Four at some point. They were a number 1 seed at some point. Now they're probably a 3 seed. How they're playing, we'll talk Cyclone Athletics with Jake Brend coming up in a little bit. But coming up after the break, baseball season's here. High school baseball season begins next week. The Big Six, the Western Big Six, has their inaugural Western Big Six baseball banquet with the coaches tonight. We'll get you information on that and talk to 2 of the conference's best in Rock Island's Jake Scudder and Alaman's Thomas Smith. That's coming up next right here on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo on a Wednesday. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll be right back. When it comes to quality, convenient pizza, Godfather's Pizza in Silvis has you covered. Featuring a beautiful dine-in area, delivery, and a carry-out window. Godfather's Pizza is that pizza you grew up with, not a convenience store. You see, at Godfather's Pizza, the dough is made fresh daily. That mozzarella cheese is shredded fresh and never frozen. And those toppings are abundantly piled high each and every time. Locally owned and operated since 2010, Godfather's is a huge supporter of local athletes right here in the Quad Cities. So come on by and check them out at 1211 Avenue of the Cities in Silvis. Order online at godfathers.com and reunite with that same delicious pizza you grew up with.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo on a Wednesday here in the Quad Cities. Beautiful spring weather, and I know it's March Madness, but baseball season's here. It starts next week for Western Big Six teams in the state of Illinois, and tonight's a special night, so I figured I'd have a couple special dudes on with me. The head coach at Rock Island, Jake Scudder, and the head coach at Alleman High School, Thomas Smith, joining me right now. Boys, first and foremost, happy baseball season. Thank you guys for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the season, and it's coming next week is when you guys get to get rolling. But I want to talk about tonight first because, you know, I've been lucky enough to be part of Western Big Six football banquets, basketball banquets for the boys. More than a couple years ago, we started the girls' Western Big Six banquet. Tonight's the first Western Big Six baseball banquet, the inaugural one. It's down at the Stern Center at 5:30. Doors open up tonight. Jake, when you hear that, a Western Big Six kid, and the other sports have always had what they've had, how exciting is tonight?
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm really happy to be a part of this first one. Hats go off to Kevin Corrigan for pulling this off. We kind of said before, you know, it's probably something that should have happened in the past. It'll be a really fun time to spotlight our athletes and, kind of the past success of all of the programs within this conference. So it should be a really good time.
Thomas, you look at the Western Big Six as a whole and this conference, it's really good. And the baseball tradition is really good. Jake kind of mentioned it, but to celebrate what Western Big Six baseball is got to be exciting tonight.
No, definitely. And Kevin Corrigan's been a longtime supporter of our Allman baseball program. So for him and the Friends of Douglas Park to put this on is great. We've had some past success with Rock Island, Galesburg, some other teams in our conference making some good playoff runs and having some good success. So to be able to celebrate not only that, but look forward to, our season this year. This is the 75th varsity team that we've had at Allman High School. So it'll be nice to highlight that Team 75 and, kind of give everyone a little season preview of what we're hoping to achieve this season.
I love that. Season preview. Now I do the other coaches banquet, guys, and sometimes there's jokes that be said and like there's roasting to be done, and see, it gets interesting sometimes. How do you approach tonight, Jake? You mentioned season preview. One, you're not going to give away any secrets, and two, are you going to have any jokes or any fun with these guys that I know you're really close with? All you guys seem really close.
Yeah, well, we'll see who leads it off and kind of sets the standard for the night. But I'm sure everybody will have some tricks up their sleeve, and as well as having a little bit of fun, just spotlighting some of our guys that deserve some time to shine on a special night. So it should be a lot of fun, and we'll kind of play it by ear and see how this thing goes.
Thomas, I assume you're not going to go out there and start throwing haymakers at other coaches, or maybe surprise some people and let's go.
I mean, we went 8-29 last year and went 0-14 in the Big Six, so we don't really have anything to stand on in terms of jokes. But, I have a feeling that there might be some jokes thrown our way, so I have a little bit of stuff up my sleeve just in case.
I love that. I can help you write jokes. It's one of my favorite things to do. Sometimes I get in trouble for them, but let me know. I can text you a few. Jake Scudder and Thomas Smith joining me right now, talking Western Big Six baseball. And guys, what's this time of year like? And Jake, I'll start with you because I know you guys want to get outside. I know. And then you get a week like this and like the sun's shining, you're ready to go working on the field. Maybe next week it's back to being crappy. Who knows? But what's this like to get the weather and you get excited about what's to come, don't you?
Oh yeah, 100%. We've been lucky so far. It's 70 degrees the last, Monday. Yesterday was beautiful as well. We get another good day today. So it's always very, very nice to get outside to start this thing off. There's nothing worse than going back inside after you get outside. So hopefully this keeps it up. We have the luxury of being able to go outside and use the turf football field as well. So, as long as it's not extremely cold and there's not snow on the ground, I think moving forward we can get out there, and it just makes things so much better. So, we got through that first week, and it's hopefully smooth sailing from here.
Absolutely. Thomas, I know that it's a long fall, but a lot is put into the fall and the winter. You know, you're working, you're building, you get outside. It's almost like Christmas. You get to unwrap some new toys and see what you have and see what's developed. Kind of talk about that, because I know these last couple weeks and this week in particular is exciting for any baseball program, especially at Alleman High School.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we put a lot of work in the off season with lifting and open gym, so we felt pretty good. Actually, the first day of practice, we were actually able to get outside and scrimmage because it was like 65 degrees. So that was beautiful. And then we were, forced back inside, which Jake said is like the worst thing ever to, taste that outside and get ready to go and then get forced back into fielder's choice. It really makes it, you get a little bit of cabin fever for sure. But I think this week, there's definitely some long days and nights out at the field. Yesterday we were out there till like 7:30, dragging and everything. So it's definitely a long day, and you always have to play everything by ear, but it's definitely exciting to get out there, and the kids are chomping at the bit to, go against someone other than each other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You look at a night like tonight, guys, in Western Big Six banquet, and you celebrate Western Big Six baseball. And I don't think, and you mentioned 75 years at Alleman, Thomas, I don't think it's just celebrating this year's baseball or like last year's of the year. I think it's celebrating what Western Big Six baseball is. And you look at storied programs at Rock Island, at Moline, at United Township, Alleman, all those schools have done such a good job building a tradition. Let's look at this year. Jake, I know that 3 straight second place finishes looks good. I mean, that's good, but it's not that one that you want. Kind of talk about where your program's at, and the postseason success has been there. A recent super sectional, a regional championship in another year. Where's your program at right now, and where do you see it maybe going this year?
Yeah, we're definitely excited to get this group back out there. We've obviously lost some key pieces from a good run last year, but the cupboard is not bare. We got some really good underclassmen coming up, chopping at the bit to get an opportunity, and we have a good chunk of senior leadership and talent that got the opportunity to go out there and compete last year. So it's going to be a different group. It'll be different for the Western Big Six to see some new faces from Rock Island. We've had kind of the same crew rolling out there the last 3 or 4 years. So. But we're really excited about it, and it's just a fun athletic group. So,
Thomas, I know there's a lot of excitement at Alleman, and there's been some lean years, but numbers are up, and there's such a storied tradition at Alleman. Year number 75, I think it's the first time there's been a JV team in several years. Kind of talk about the excitement that I know you have around your program at Alleman High School.
Yeah, coming in here last year, our coaching staff was pretty brutally honest with each other, and we knew that we really didn't have a chance to compete for a Western Big Six title or anything like that last year. So we were just trying to get better every single day. And every coach kind of says that, and it's kind of cliche, but we truly meant it. We were so much better game 37 last year than we were game 1. So that was kind of like a victory for us. But, this year, like you said, we went up from 23 players in our program to 36 this year. So full-time JV team for the first time since 2021, so that's really exciting. For those young guys to get the development reps is absolutely vital. And that's something that we haven't had in 3 years. We have a lot of newcomers, new faces to our program this year as well. A good mix of upperclassmen, newcomers, and freshmen. So we're hoping to compete this year in the Western Big Six, and I think if we execute our game, and I say it every single day, if we throw strikes, put the ball in play, and make routine plays, I think all of our goals that we have for ourselves this year, which is winning 20 games, competing in the Western Big Six and trying to make some noise in the playoffs are certainly achievable.
You look at that staff, Thomas, and there's a lot of familiar faces that know what Alleman baseball, I don't want to say what Alleman baseball used to be, but remember the not too far ago glory days. It's some really good times at Alleman baseball. Talk about that staff. I mean, they're not good-looking people by any stretch, and there's an old mangy guy that you let hang around. I don't know why John Marks is still there, but that's beyond the point. But talk about having guys in your program that know what it's like to have success at that school.
Yeah, so we have 9 coaches this year between varsity and junior varsity, and I am the only one that never attended Alleman High School out of the 9. So they're very familiar with what Alleman baseball was, and they're all bought into what Alleman baseball is right now and what it's going to be in the future. Coach Marks has some hip issues right now, so he's coaching from his bougie little rocking chair in the dugout. But these guys are great, and obviously I love being around the kids, but I absolutely love being around our coaching staff even more. We do Chick-fil-A breakfast every Saturday, and we have a lot of fun playing fungo golf and stuff like that. So we're certainly keeping Coach Marks young, and we're having a lot of fun doing it.
He doesn't need to move around for that voice to carry. You can't.
No.
That voice just carries. Trust me, I know that well.
It's kind of nice with him around because I don't have to be the bad cop all the time. He definitely the bad cop, and I'm able to kind of sit back and kind of just be myself sometimes.
It's fun because my son comes home, he's a freshman there, and he's like, some of the kids are like, man, Johnny or Coach Marks, and I'm like, well, what do you think? He's like, it's just Johnny being Johnny. He's like, I'm used to that. I'm like, well, you've been around him, so that's always a beautiful thing. Handicap this. I don't want you to make predictions, but I ask every banquet that I go to, football wise, basketball wise, handicap the conference or who do you expect besides yourself, Jake? When you look at the Western Big Six, who do you expect to be that team or those teams that kind of maybe sit near the top as we get into this thing?
Yeah, I've actually had this conversation with a few people. This is going to be a weird year in the Western Big Six where I think everybody is lost kind of their, I don't want to say the faces of their program, but all the big names for the most part graduated. So there's a lot of question marks, I think, within, every program. Coaches are, probably really confident in their rosters, but I think as an opposing coach, you're confused and excited to see what other teams are going to have, on their roster. So I think that's a kind of a mystery question at the moment. It's going to be a pretty balanced conference, and I think we'll probably know a little more after this banquet tonight. See how some other guys feel.
Thomas, that was the political answer from Jake Scudder up there, which is really well done. That's very good. Any thoughts on handicapping this thing in the Western Big Six?
I mean, UT won it last year, so I would say if Vegas was getting involved in a small Western Big Six conference prediction, that they would probably be the favorite. And then Rock Island's had some good finishes the last 3 years, so I'd say those two. And I would say Galesburg and Moline are always up there as well. I would say those are probably the top four. But like Jake said, it's definitely a pretty balanced conference. And if you look at the all-conference list from last year, I'd say 75% of that all-conference list were seniors last year, like Jake alluded to. So there's definitely a lot of talent that has graduated from our conference. So it is really kind of up for grabs.
Before I let you guys go, a couple more quick things. You look at, I spend a lot of Western Big Six Saturdays running around trying to get to as many doubleheaders as I can, and which doubleheader meant the most towards the end of the season. If they win game one, then game two doesn't matter, all that kind of stuff. But I enjoyed the Saturdays knowing that you have Western Big Six baseball at 11 o'clock, and you were going to spend the afternoon at the Ball Diamond watching really good baseball. Now I come to find out that since I left, I guess, but now it's during the week as conferences, leaving weekends open. A different change. How do you guys approach that when it comes to, pitching staffs, rotations, getting guys ready, all those kind of things, and scheduling? Jake, we'll start with your thoughts on moving away from the conference doubleheaders on the weekends.
Yeah, no, I'm a man of tradition, and I like what the Western Big Six. I grew up watching. Family played in it. I played in it. If I wasn't on a field on a Saturday playing game, I was at a field watching the Western Big Six game. So we'll see how it goes. I'm indifferent. Maybe we'll come to really enjoy it, but it's going to be a different year. As to what you said, pitchers, scheduling practices. It's going to be a little bit of trial and error, see what works for our program. Might have to do some Sunday stuff, get guys going for a Monday important conference game. So trial and error, we'll see how it goes. But there's nothing better than waking up for a Saturday morning Western Big Six conference doubleheader. I'll tell you that.
Thomas, they're making you guys earn that big paycheck by maybe thinking a little more this year without those weekends and conference doubleheaders.
When I was at Orion, we actually did our conferences on Monday and Thursday, so I do have some familiarity with conference weekdays. I also didn't go to a Big Six school, so a lot of our schools when I went to high school in the Chicago suburbs were on the weekends, on the weekdays as well. So this is kind of a little bit more familiar to me, but last year being my first year at Allman, I absolutely loved everything that the Western Big Six Saturday doubleheaders meant. Just being out at the yard all day was being around our guys and our coaching staff was great. And when you play those Western Big Six games, even our program that struggled a little bit last year, the atmospheres were always great. The opposing crowds were awesome. So definitely going to miss that, but looking forward to a new challenge this year.
Advantage Alleman is what I think he just said, Jake.
Yeah.
I think he just said Advantage Alleman. Before I let you guys before I let you guys go, I know all you guys when it comes to coaches in the Western Big Six, and y'all seem to get along really, really well. Talk about the coaches in the Western Big Six. There's a new one at Geneseo this year, but and I know it from other sports too, from football, from the basketball. It's kind of a fraternity. Yeah, you battle, you want to win, you want to beat each other, but there's a lot of mutual respects and friendships, I think, that gets formed because you guys know what each other are going through. Jake, I'll start with you. The coaches in the Western Big Six, you seem like a pretty fun group, pretty tight group.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a respect thing. Like you said, we battle and compete a few times a year. But I think every coach in the conference is willing to bounce ideas off each other. I have 5 or 6 guys that I can shoot a text at any given time and, ask them a question, ask them their ideas on a certain thing, and, they'll get back to me with a response, in a couple minutes. So it's a respect thing. We see the work that they put in. They put a good product on the field, and we want to do the same thing. So it's a fun group with a lot of personality. So I'm excited about what tonight's going to look like.
That is a nice way of putting it. There is a lot of personality when it comes to Western Big Six coaches. Thomas, you're not the new guy anymore, so that's a good thing. Talk about these coaches that welcomed you in with open arms last year when you made the move from Orion.
Yeah, definitely. There's some coaches that are around my age. Like I think Jake and Bryce Lucan we're all kind of the same age. So we get along pretty well. I work with Jake a lot, obviously, through Rock Island Legion. So we've spent some late nights with some adult beverages on the phone talking to each other about some Legion stuff. So definitely those two guys being the same age. I talk to Jeremy Pickerel all the time from Galesburg down at the Illinois High School Baseball Coaches Association Clinic in Lombard every year. So those are the kind of guys that I talk to a lot. But there's definitely a lot of, like Jake said, a lot of respect amongst all the coaches trying to put a competitive product on the field every single, used to be Saturday, but this year Monday and Wednesday.
Yeah, and you look at it, guys, you probably learn from each other as well and pick things from each other. You can't let them learn too much, especially tonight, because we can smile and be nice now, but there's going to be what is it? Is it going to be Mondays and Thursdays? Is that going to be Western Big Six League night?
Monday, Wednesday. So you guys are going to like each other now, but come Monday or Wednesday, you guys are going to be battling each other. Once again, the Western Big Six Coaches Banquet, the inaugural baseball Western Big Six Coaches Banquet is tonight. Get down there. We're going to put this on social media as much as we can. I wish I should have done this yesterday with you guys, but I got behind in the times a little bit as well. So tonight, 5:30, the Stern Center. That's when doors open. Dinner at 6, $15 to get in. You'll listen to all the coaches from the Western Big Six talk about what they got coming up this season. And it's also a celebration of Western Big Six baseball. So get down there and enjoy it. Boys, I appreciate you guys doing this. Hopefully this warmed you up for tonight. Now you got your speeches ready and all that kind of stuff, and you guys can rock and roll. Best of luck this season. Good luck at Rock Island, Jake. At Alleman, Thomas, go easy on Johnny. Be nice to him and smack my kid around every time you get a chance to see him. I appreciate that. Hey, thanks for having us, Matt. I really appreciate it. Load the wagon.
Thanks, Matt. We appreciate you.
Awesome. Two of the best in the business, Jake Scudder and Thomas Smith, talking Western Big Six baseball. It's that time of year. I know that March Madness has everybody crazy, and we're really excited about what's coming up in March, but baseball season is upon us. And guys, it doesn't get any better than baseball in the Western Big Six. So again, I encourage you, take the time, support local sports, support local baseball, go down to the Stern Center, fantastic facility, get a great meal, and also check out Western Big Six baseball tonight at the Stern Center. 5:30 doors open up, $15, 6 o'clock is dinner. So, and Jay Kidwell one of my best friends, great dude. He will be the MC tonight. They don't get any better than Jay Kidwell. He's worth the price of admission. So we will be back. We got much more to get to. We'll talk a little Iowa State athletics and the Cyclones coming up next right here on Off the Air. When it comes to quality, convenient pizza, Godfather's Pizza in Silvis has you covered. Featuring a beautiful dine-in area, delivery, and a carry-out window. Godfather's Pizza is that pizza you grew up with, not a convenience store. You see, at Godfather's Pizza, the dough is made fresh daily. That mozzarella cheese is shredded fresh and never frozen. And those toppings are abundantly piled high each and every time. Locally owned and operated since 2010, Godfather's is a huge supporter of local athletes right here in the Quad Cities. So come on by and check them out at 1211 Avenue of the Cities in Silvis. Order online at godfathers.com and reunite with that same delicious pizza you grew up with. Welcome back to Off the Air with Matt Randazzo on a Wednesday here in the Quad Cities. We've talked a lot of March Madness, especially this week. We've talked a lot of Iowa, their game coming up tonight at the Big Ten tournament against Ohio State. We've had Nicholas Bear on. We've had Tom Kakert on. We've talked Illini yesterday with Jim Matson. But what about those Cyclones? We'll talk about them right now because they have a game coming up in just a couple hours. Jake Brend, our good friend from WI in the Des Moines area, joins us right now. Jake, first and foremost, thanks for doing this. It's been too long, which means we got a lot to catch up on. And we'll start with those guys. Tip time's a couple hours away. Iowa State versus Cincinnati. Before we talk about the game itself, just the way this season has ended for Iowa State, because it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride for the Cyclones.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Definitely a roller coaster ride. Injuries, sickness, upset losses. Oklahoma State on the road, BYU at home, K-State at home. It's been just a really up and down year. Iowa State closed the regular season in their last 15 at 8-7. So not at all how you want to finish the season. They did finish it on somewhat of a high note, winning at K-State in a revenge game, but the team definitely went through more lulls than I would have ever expected them to this season. And whether it was injury or fatigue, I don't know exactly what the diagnosis is.
Yeah. And you look at it, we know about the injuries, and I think those games were expected. And you look at them going to Houston without two of their best players and having that come back and falling short, you kind of felt pretty good about the way the team was playing despite injuries. And then some more road bumps hit. How much can be put on injuries? How much can just be put on it's a long season? And every team, nobody goes 30-1 anymore. Especially the Big 12, and that conference is a gauntlet. What was it? Was it injuries? The conference, kind of a combination of both?
Yeah, I think it was not just the injuries, but what the injuries did to everybody else. Because I think more so than most programs around the country, I think the way TJ Otzelberger constructs his team is like the roles are so defined compared to really anywhere else in the country. So it seems to me like when you take one guy out of his role and everybody else has to step up a little bit, that's when the wheels kind of start to come off. And I think whether it's Milan's injury for 4 weeks and then Keyshawn's injury for 3 weeks, it seems like it's been months since everyone on the team has been in their role that they're supposed to have. And I think that's played a really big factor. And that game at Oklahoma State, Taman Lipsey shot, I think, 8 threes. And that's just not who he is as a player. So he was trying to play out of his role to make up for Gilbert's injury and Jones's sickness. So I think that's been a lot of the problem is there hasn't been enough games where everybody's played together and that rhythm has really been thrown off.
Do you look at college basketball, Jake, and gosh, you got a team like Nebraska that was in the Big Ten or the NCAA tournament 3 weeks ago. Now they're not even the Big Ten tournament. We got the Illini in our area where the sky was falling and they were going to be an 8 or 9 seed, and then they win 3 straight, and they were talked about as a Final Four team in December. So if you don't like where you're at in college basketball, I always say wait a week or two, and usually it changes. Kind of the same with Iowa State. I mean, I've talked to you on this show about the Final Four being a number 1 seed. We had that conversation probably back when I started this show in January. Like, that could be a number 1 seed. Now they're a 5 seed in the Big 12 tournament. So I don't know it's the numbers or it's the fact that you just want to be playing correctly at the right time of year. Where is Iowa State right now? Are they back to, you talked about that impressive victory to end the season at Kansas State. Are they back to playing correctly the way they want to at the right time of the year?
I think the verdict is still out on that. They had that really impressive beatdown of Arizona and then followed it up with a great game against BYU that, it was a horrible 15-minute stretch, but it also showed, I think, some of the best basketball that Iowa State's played this season. And then K-State's terrible. So while it was an impressive must-win, I don't know how much you can take from that team. What I will say from where I'm at with this Iowa State team, big picture, I think the ceiling is still as high as it was when we talked back in January. I do think this team is still good enough to go to a Final Four. They're good enough to play in a national championship game. But I also think that the floor is a little bit lower than we're used to under a TJ Altenberger team. Like last year's team, I never even envisioned the possibility of them getting upset by a 14 seed. It just, the way they play defense, the way they didn't turn the ball over, it just never felt like they were going to do that. But then when this team lost by 19 at home to K-State, lost on the road to Oklahoma State, it does open up the possibility of a game where the Cyclones turn the ball over 18 times and get clipped by a 14 seed. So I do think the floor is a little lower and the team just as a whole is more volatile.
So they head to Kansas City. Excuse me. We talked about that, and they're getting ready to play here soon. Before we talk about their first round matchup with Cincinnati coming up in a little bit, you look at big picture with this thing. And yeah, I love conference tournaments because you maybe get a chance. We talked about it with the Iowa women at a little revenge. Michigan State is a team that beat the Iowa women. Iowa gets a chance to take them down. Ohio State didn't get the job done. Another great game. That BYU game is fresh in these guys' heads. That would be Thursday. That'd be a great game.
Yep.
But they got to take care of business today. But look at the big picture of things, and I like the way it kind of sets up. I mean, obviously, you're going to have to beat really good teams in the Big 12. It's going to be a gauntlet. But to get a BYU, to get a team that you kind of want to play again, and then maybe look ahead at Houston if they win out, just the way the bracket fell for Iowa State this year.
Yeah, the bracket fell in a fine way. The problem is they played themselves off of that double bye.
Yeah.
So they're playing an extra game that they probably shouldn't have to, but Iowa State's the one who put themselves in that position. Where it does set up nice is what I talked about a little bit earlier. I think this team needs rhythm, and I think this team needs to play games together fully healthy. Keyshawn Gilbert's playing today against Cincinnati. It sounds like he's been in the lineup twice since, I believe, like February 15th. So the roster's been fully healthy for pretty much 5 games since the middle of January. So maybe a warm-up game against Cincinnati. I mean, they got to take care of business. They got to play well. But maybe a warm-up game to get those vibes back, get the rhythm back. Maybe that could set up well heading into BYU. And then if you beat BYU, Houston is, I think, maybe the best team in the country. But you get to do it at Hilton South. And we've seen Iowa State teams a lot of years look like they're dead on the mat. And then they go down to Kansas City and and they figure it out. So that is certainly a possibility for this weekend.
It is a special place. I want to talk to you about that because it does get pretty crazy down in Kansas City for the Cyclones. Jake Brend joining us right now, our Cyclone expert here on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. And let's look at Cincinnati, because I remember clearly putting the Cyclones in a moneyline parlay that Saturday afternoon. They played the Cincinnati maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. And kind of having to grind it out a little bit. There was some points in the second half where I was like, wait a minute, this was supposed to be my throw-in one. Cincinnati can be grindy. They can be, they have talent. It wasn't the year that they expected. I think 18-14 coming in. But you mentioned, yes, it's nice to play a game together. Yes, that will be a lot of fun tomorrow if BYU and Iowa State play, but they have to take care of business today against a Cincinnati team that does have talent. Talk about today's matchup between Iowa State and Cincinnati coming up here in just a few hours.
Yeah, Cincinnati was a preseason top 25 team. They barely missed the tournament last year and essentially returned everybody from their roster. So it's been a very disappointing year, extremely disappointing year. But we saw them play in Hilton Coliseum a month ago, and that was a close game with 5 minutes left, a couple technical fouls, and the game got out of hand. But that was a game that Iowa State had a chance to lose. Jizzle James, their point guard, is incredible. He was on a tear coming into Ames. I think he was averaging 25 a game for a 4-game stretch. He's cooled off a little bit since then, but we saw what he did. He is capable of a big game like that, and yeah, they're talented, they're tough and athletic. So Iowa State will have their hands full. They can't turn the ball over 15 times like they've made a habit of doing the last month.
You look at we talked about it being Hilton South. I think you've been down there when it's been Hilton South.
Yep.
And Cyclone fans travel, but it seems like in Kansas City, that's a hotbed for Iowa State athletics. What is it about that place, that city, that town? And it is a huge advantage, in my opinion, every year when the Cyclones head south.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that play into it. It's fun. The Power and Light District right across the street from the T-Mobile Center is just a great tradition. Bars, food, live music, all that fun stuff. And you know, Iowans like to drink. Iowans will enjoy that. The actual product, I mean, it's Big 12 basketball. You get to go watch one of the, if not the best basketball conferences in the country. The weather, it's 10 degrees warmer in Kansas City typically than it is in Iowa this time of year. So there's just a lot of factors that Iowa State fans want to flock down. And I wouldn't expect a huge showing today. The Wednesday game is kind of new. If they win today, you'll get your normal Thursday crowd for that morning game. Kind of not a huge crowd, but then when they win that Thursday game, that's Fridays when you see it. Fridays when you could head south on I-35 and you'll be passing a lot of Iowa State license plates. And it's a cool thing to experience when you watch on TV and you're like, oh, there's quite a few Iowa State fans there, to the next day, like, is there any other fans there? And it's a pretty unique atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget the people I think conference tournaments end on like Sunday because the Big Ten does. It's a Saturday night finish for the Big 12.
Yep.
It's always rocking and rolling in Kansas City. We'll see if the Iowa State Cyclones can get there. You talked about Houston, and you just mentioned you think they might be the best team in the entire country. Handicap this thing for me. Obviously, Iowa State, talented home court-ish advantage, if you will. We just talked about that. But really good teams. I mean, Texas Tech's playing really, really well. Houston's good. Arizona is Arizona. They're a good basketball team. I think Iowa State is one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the conference still, although their seed says 5. Who wins this thing on Saturday night and cuts down some nets?
So my pick was Texas Tech. I think they've got the easiest path there. Really, most of those teams' first game they'll play in the quarterfinal will be pretty easy, but they get Baylor. So while BYU has to face Iowa State and KU, or Arizona's got to play KU, Tech gets Baylor, a pretty down Baylor team, all things considered. And then they're going to get the winner of Arizona and Kansas. Tech's beat both of those teams already this season. I think they've got a pretty easier path to the championship. And then if they play Houston in the championship, I think they'll be the more hungry team than Houston, because Houston's locked into a 1 seed. There's really not much for them to play for. And we saw it last year in Kansas City when they were so beat up, and when Houston got down like 10 or 12 against Iowa State, they kind of just mailed it in.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't shock me to see Houston maybe bow out in the semifinals to an Iowa State or a BYU. And then, I think Texas Tech is that second best team in the Big 12. I think they bring home their first ever Big 12 conference tournament championship.
All right. Well, we'll have that on record on Off the Air in case that happens, and we can let you do a victory lap. Talk to me, because you look at the Big 10, and I don't think it's the best conference tournament. It might be the most intriguing because of the parity. You look at the SEC, and that's really loaded. You look at the Big 12, and that's really good. What's the best conference tournament right now? Is it the Big 12? Is that the most top-heavy, biggest hitters? Is it the SEC with Tennessee, Alabama? I'm missing one. Auburn is really good. If you had to take, and I'm probably a little biased, but if you had to take a weekend as a college basketball fan and go to one of those two, which one are you are you partaking in?
I think year in, year out, you just got to go to the Big 12 tournament. Like it truly, I don't even know where the SEC tournament is. Is it Nashville this year?
It's Nashville.
Like it probably, Nashville will go on if the SEC tournament left. Kansas City would not survive for that week if the Big 12 tournament left. Like the city shuts down, and the city is built around that tournament for that weekend. So that's where I think, even just from a community aspect, from an event aspect, putting the basketball aside, this year the product in the SEC is better than the Big 12. I do think maybe the Big 12's flown a little bit under the radar because Houston lost a couple games early this season, and it might have tanked the reputation. The SEC is the better basketball conference this year, and if you're wanting to go strictly for on-the-court product, sure, head to Nashville, but if you just want a great week on and off the court, have fun, I still think Kansas City's your place to be.
Jake, where do you put conference tournaments right now? I went to the Big Ten tournament. This is the first time in a long time I haven't been to the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis, but I'm looking forward to watching it, but I don't put as much stock into it as I used to. I look at, and I go both ways. I mean, you look at, Iowa winning a few years ago, going to Buffalo and laying an egg. But you look at Illinois winning the Big Ten tournament last year and making an Elite Eight. Iowa State won the Big 12 tournament, and they turned around and made the Sweet 16. So I go both ways with the fact that, it's great to win and have that emotional high, but then the quick turnaround to play in a tournament that matters more next week. Where do you put stock in tournaments, conference tournaments right now?
Yeah, I think you can make an argument for anything because there's an example of everything. Even Iowa State in this last decade, you could make the argument, a team was struggling at the end of the season and then found their groove in Kansas City and, like you said, made a Sweet 16 run. They've also been struggling, gone down to Kansas City, figured it out, and then lost to Ohio State as a 6th seed. They also were the hottest team in the country, won the Big 12 tournament. I think Dick Vitale picked Iowa State to win the national championship, and they lost to UAB. So you could I don't think the causation is always meeting correlation, is my point. I think the tournaments are still important, but they're not important to every team the same way or the same year. But because some teams, they might just need rest, and maybe getting bounced the first round and having 7, 8 days before your first NCAA tournament game is what a team needs. Sometimes, like you said with Illinois, maybe that team needs to see the ball go through the net. They need to see the confidence that comes from beating top quality teams. And I think that definitely changes from year to year. The problem is the committee has shown that they don't really value the conference tournament. I think it's there for the bubble teams. I think that's where the conference tournament does factor into the committee, but we saw it with Iowa State last year. They were a 2 seed. They were the last 2 seed by most projections heading into the conference tournament. They rolled through a top 25 team and then beat the number 1 team in the country by 30 points. And not only did they not move up a seed line, they didn't move up a spot. They went from 8 to 8. And if that's the precedent the committee is going to set, then it's hard to take it too seriously on, could they jump from a 3 to a 2 with a win this weekend? Because it just doesn't seem like the committee values it as much as they should.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You look at some people will say, hey, if my team gets to the Big Ten tournament or a Big 12 tournament and, they make a run, they could go from a 7 to a 5 and I just don't see that happening. And we've got precedent that they just don't do that as much. You have Iowa State kind of as a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. Talk about that important tournament coming up and Selection Sunday coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, I think they're pretty locked into a 3. Maybe a loss today could bump them down to a 4, depending on what happens around them. And like if the committee was based off of my precedent, I would honestly value conference tournaments just as much, if not more, than the regular season, because you're getting to see teams on neutral courts like we're about to in a week at the NCAA tournament. And I do think how teams are playing at the end of the season matters. But again, I don't think the committee will. So I'd like to say, man, if Iowa State goes down there, beats BYU, Houston, Tech, that's 3 quad 1 wins against a 1 seed, a 2 seed, a 5 seed. You'd like to think that would give them a shot to bump up to a 2, but truly, I don't know, and I don't think that would be the case. So I think Iowa State's pretty locked into a 3 seed. But I will say, I don't think a 3 seed is a horrible spot to be this year, because I don't know if you've seen the 7 seeds. Illinois could be one of them. BYU, UConn, Kansas,
yeah, I didn't think about that.
The gap between on bracketmatrix.com that shows the average kind of all the bracketologists, the difference between those 6 seeds and the 7 seeds are pretty drastic. Like you'd almost rather face a 6 seed because they've got a pretty good shot of getting knocked off by one of those 11 seeds. So that's my silver lining to Iowa State fans on the gap between that 2 and the 3 seed.
Jake, before we let you go, quickly talk to me about Iowa State women. They finished the season 22-11. I think 12-6 in the conference, something like that. Where do you see them when selections Sunday or Monday, whatever it is Monday, I think, comes for the women? Yep. And where do you see where that lands? And Bill Fenley's they're in the NCAA tournament, aren't they?
You'd think so. They were last 4 in heading into the last week of that regular season, and then finally picked up their first quad 1 win over K-State on senior day. I think they're in. It probably is a 10 seed, just like last year. And if they're a 10 seed, that's a team you don't want to see as a 2 seed, not because they're this great team that's proved it week in, week out this year. In fact, they've had a pretty disappointing year, but it's not like even with a disappointing year that Audie Crooks and Emily Ryan and Addie Brown aren't on the other side. This is a team that I think started to figure it out in February. They played a lot better basketball. They had a close call in Kansas City against Baylor. If I'm a 2 seed, I do not want to see Audie. I don't want to see Addie. That's a really tough matchup, even if the team has underperformed this season.
Absolutely. Well, it'll be interesting to see Sunday, the Iowa State men. Monday, the women will find out where they're going. A lot of basketball, including in just a little bit, Iowa State and Cincinnati, and then maybe BYU, and then maybe Houston, and then I'm pretty sure a trip to Kansas City might be in the cards for young Jake Brend as well. Hey, I appreciate you doing this. We'll catch up again next week before you get sent off to wherever you're heading to, and we'll chat Cyclones basketball as we get ready for more March Madness. I always appreciate you, my guy.
Yep, thank you, Dazzo.
All right, Jake Brend from WOI in Des Moines, talking Cyclones here on a Wednesday here in the Quad Cities. It should be an interesting time of year for all three of our local teams. Iowa playing to this evening. Decision, big picture moving forward. Illinois in the Big Ten tournament and moving on to the NCAA tournament as well. And Iowa State. I still got a betting slip for Iowa State to make the Final Four, and I don't hate it. I think they can turn things around and play really well here really, really, really soon. So we got a lot more to get to. You're watching Off the Air on a Wednesday. We'll be right back.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. When it comes to quality, convenient pizza, Godfather's Pizza in Silvis has you covered. Featuring a beautiful dine-in area, delivery, and a carry-out window. Godfather's Pizza is that pizza you grew up with, not a convenience store. You see, at Godfather's Pizza, the dough is made fresh daily. That mozzarella cheese is shredded fresh and never frozen. And those toppings are abundantly piled high each and every time. Locally owned and operated since 2010, Godfather's is a huge supporter of local athletes right here in the Quad Cities. So come on by and check them out at 1211 Avenue of the Cities in Silvis. Order online at godfathers.com and reunite with that same delicious pizza you grew up with. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Wednesday here in the Quad Cities. It is Wednesday, March 12th. Thank you guys for watching so far today. It's been a lot of fun, of course. A lot to get to tonight, a big night of sports. We've been talking a lot about the Iowa basketball team. They play tonight against Ohio State at the Big Ten tournament. All eyes will be on that one, not because it's 11 versus 14 or 10 versus 15 or whatever I think it's 10-15, whatever the matchup is. It's the fact of the overall future of Iowa athletics. We've talked to Nicholas Baer this week. If you missed that earlier in the week, we talked to him yesterday. Obviously someone who's got a lot of support and love for Fran McCaffrey. Go check out that interview. Tom Kakert we talked to on Monday, kind of about the entire situation. So Iowa, the basketball team, goes to Indianapolis looking to continue their season. But everyone thinking about and talking about the future of Fran McCaffrey. So we'll keep an eye on that, of course, in the next couple of days as well. Again, the winner tonight, Ohio State and Iowa. The winner plays Illinois on Thursday. So we could get Iowa versus Illinois Part 2 at the Big Ten tournament. So we'll keep all eyes on that. The Iowa State Cyclones will take on Cincinnati. That game is just about to tip off right now on ESPN. They take on Cincinnati. If they win, they get BYU. A BYU team that came to the Hilton Coliseum and beat the Cyclones, was it last week or the week before? So recently. So all eyes on that one to see if Iowa State can get back on track. Keshawn Gilbert is back from injury as well. He'll play today. So see if Iowa State gets a chance at a little revenge tomorrow against BYU. And of course, we had Jake Brend on earlier in this show. Kansas City becomes the Hilton South, becomes Ames South, if you will, later on this weekend if Iowa State continues in the Big 12 tournament. So we'll keep an eye on that throughout the weekend as well. We also had Jake Scudder from Rock Island and Thomas Smith from Alleman, baseball coaches, getting ready for the Western Big Six Coaches Banquet tonight. It's the inaugural Coaches Banquet. For years and years, we've done the Western Big Six Football Coaches Banquet, the Western Big Six Men's Basketball, Boys Basketball Coaches Banquet. In recent years, we've added the Girls Coaches Banquet tonight. They're going to do the inaugural Western Big Six Baseball Coaches Banquet. I think it's a fantastic idea. My good friend Jay Kidwell will be emceeing that event. It starts at 5:30. That's when the doors open up at the Stern Center. 6 p.m. is dinner, and the program will start. Listen to all the coaches talk about Western Big Six baseball. Great place to be, especially when you look outside and you see the weather going on right now. So beautiful weather. Baseball season is here. Head down, support local athletics, support the Western Big Six, and support the inaugural Western Big Six Coaches Banquet coming up tonight. Coming up on tomorrow's show, super excited because later on this afternoon, I'm going to chat with Joe Wieskamp, former Muscatine standout, former Iowa Hawkeye standout, playing professional basketball this year. He just got back from Australia. So we'll talk to Joe Wieskamp, get his thoughts on his season, his development, what's next in his future. Also get caught up with that family of his, of course, married and has a little boy, JJ. So we'll get caught up on Joe, the dad as well, see how parenting and fatherhood is going for Joe Wieskamp. Also talk to him about the Iowa basketball program, his thoughts on, Fran McCaffrey, the legacy that he has built at Iowa, his time at the University of Iowa as well. So a lot to get to with Joe Wieskamp. That's coming up on tomorrow's show. So make sure you check out Off the Air with Matt Randazzo coming up tomorrow. We'll also be talking about the Iowa basketball game from tonight and, of course, Iowa State, and get ready for Illinois as well. So a lot to get to on tomorrow's show. Coming up next week, really excited because next week we'll have Matt Drinkle, the head football coach at Central Michigan, Bettendorf standout, taking over his first Division I head coaching gig at Central Michigan. I think he's going to do an amazing job building a great staff, a good roster, all that kind of stuff. So Matt Drinkle next week on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. I'm excited about that. And then also Quad City Steamwheeler season is right around the corner. Doug Bland will be along next week as well to talk about the start of the season, the owner of the Steamwheelers, to talk about Steamwheeler football right around the corner as well. So excited about that. And also one last plug before I let you get off into your Wednesday. The Guy Randazzo Memorial Golf Outing is set for June 14th. We're really excited about it. Year number 11. So packed every single year. We welcome fun guests, Pat Angerer, Joe Conklin, Brock and Owen have been there in recent years. Brock Harding and Owen Freeman. Logan Lee's partaken in the event as well. Every year we do Iowa versus Illinois. So we have football players from Iowa, football players from Illinois. They kind of compete for this beautiful little trophy that we have. Last year was the Illini led by Cole Rusk. And Luke Altmaier was in the Quad Cities, QB1. So we'll see what happens this year as well, but hoping to get those guys back again. So great time when it comes to people you'll see. James Sahara, some old friends of mine from my former life will join us as well. So really a fun day of golf. Go to GuyRandazzoGolf.com. It's June 14th. At Highland Springs Golf Course. Beautiful facility there. New clubhouse that came last year. I think there's a new pavilion being started or might be started or being worked upon as well. So a great place to golf as well. Great course. So Guy Randazzo Golf. Go check that out. Get your team signed up. Come join us. We'll have a lot of fun on June 14th. It's a day that is important to me. I get to raise money for a good cause, not just me, but myself, my brother, my sister, some of my good friends, Pat Flynn, one of them. But we also get to celebrate my pops. So a fun week for me, kind of getting ready for that as well. So we've got a lot more to get to this week as well. As I mentioned, Joe Wieskamp tomorrow and a lot more. We want to thank you guys for watching via X or YouTube or wherever you're watching. If you're subscribing to the podcast, we appreciate that. Subscribe, do all those things we need you to do, and we will be back for another episode of Off the Air coming up tomorrow. We will see you guys then.